Yeah. Okay, who should I give the,
Hingham Zoom 4 or me or either one.
Just give it to Daniel.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm on my phone, which I'm not used to, so hold on 1 second.
Now Heidi is just brilliant.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll take it. Make host. Okay, Dan, you're the host.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we
Sorry.
are recording now, finally, right?
Yep.
Appreciate it, Heidi.
Okay, no problem. I'm gonna
You
leave. If you
are-
need anything, just text me, Andrea.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Heidi. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I also just wanted to make a point that Catherine brought up. Catherine's absolutely right. There is a telephone pole that is in the yard near the wall. There's also an electronic panel you may have seen. There's a wood panel with an electronic meter or two on it. We are planning to, on both counts, with the electrical panel as well as the post, the telephone post or the cable post, put in some attractive shrubbery on the front part of the lawn to obscure both of those things, or at least to make it look nicer on that end of the curb, which would be something that I think would enhance the aesthetics of it if we were to remove the wall, not just leave that out there hanging bare. So that is part of what we would think we would be doing, that there would be some plantings that would go there once the wall was actually removed.
So tonight we would just talk about your permission to take it down, and then you would come back before us with a landscape, hardscape plan, whatever you want to do after that. Is that right?
Is if that is necessary to put in plants after the wall is removed. If it's not, I see some folks shaking their head that that's not necessary.
Not
Or-
plants.
Hardscape is, but not planting.
No, we wouldn't be planning on doing any hardscaping.
Okay,
It would be doing some putting in some thoughtfully selected and placed shrubs and so on and so forth around those areas.
so what would you do with the rocks? I'm curious.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we don't have any plans to repurpose them, but certainly would be open to, if the committee had thoughts about repurposing the rocks, I think we'd be completely open to, discussing where they could find a home or be used to reconstruct something at some other location. But we haven't actually taken our thought process much farther than that.
Okay.
Just as far as to help, I guess, the other commissioners, maybe to see where all we're standing. Like I like the thoughtfulness of it, but I don't feel like I'm not opposed for it to be removed at this point. From all the things we have talked about, just so everyone knows and wants to weigh that one way or another.
The last thing I'll add is just rereading through the historic card for it. It has a very, very thorough, I don't know if anybody else got to look at it. It's 7 pages and it was done in 73. And then also it was updated again, I think in 80. It's interesting that, it's been looked at twice and inventoried, designated in 88. Not once do they mention the rock wall to any significance or in passing by. And I did go pull up the abutting house that you mentioned, Marianne, and same thing. It doesn't mention anything about it. So I think that's kind of telling. It sounds like it's the photo from 73 shows it there. It wasn't designated as part of the historic district until after that. So probably was done by a homeowner at some point when they didn't need to come to a commission to get that approval. So
I'm going to chime in and say my assessment of the situation is that it doesn't rise to the level where we should bar the homeowner from taking it down if he would like to.
So who would like to
Make
offer
a-
amendment?
I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of demolition for a rock wall in Pears located at 223 North Street, located in the Lincoln Local Historic District. And to be replaced with landscape.
Seconded?
I'll second that.
Okay, let's go right down the list. Catherine?
I'm afraid I'm pro quirk and oddity, and I'm going to say no.
Okay,
We love that about you.
it's the best part of you. There we go. Eric?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Carol? Aye. Okay. 4-1, you got your permit. Thank you, Kevin. Let us know if you plan to do anything exciting with those rocks.
Appreciate the thoughtful discussion. Appreciate the approval. If anybody has any follow-up thoughts on the rocks and or the stones and where they might find a home someplace in Hingham. I also don't know if we're on a timeline once the permit is issued to have it removed, and a decision has to be made as to where they would go shortly after that point in time, but please let us know.
My only thought is to ask your neighbor, the Hersey house, since they have fairly identical rocks going along, maybe they want some more of them.
Kevin, they're
And you
6
could
months.
just roll them over.
Yeah, toss them.
The certificate is good for 6 months after it is issued.
Okay,
And so you can renew that just by sending me an email. Okay?
oh, so it can be extended?
Yes, it can.
Okay. Not to drag this out, but in perpetuity, or if it needed to get pushed into 2024?
Well,
As long as we're all.
That's
aligned.
something I could talk to Andrea about offline. I don't need to waste your time.
yeah, okay, great. I just,
Thank you all. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for
thank you, Kevin.
your
Thanks,
input. And I
Kevin.
appreciate your time joining you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much.
Now we have Laura here. Laura Webley here.
Yes, hi, we're here.
Hi, there you are. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. You want to tell us where you are in your project, or I could read it?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. We had an informal meeting a week ago, and the commission was kind enough to come and do a very quick site visit on Saturday. So thank you to everybody that came out. We had everything staked out so everybody could see where everything was going to lie on the lot. And we had some good discussion, and we're here again today in a formal capacity. I have Susan and Karina here too. I don't know if we need to go through the presentation
Hi.
again or how you would like to kick off.
Any thoughts? Anybody have questions about it? And who didn't make the site visit?
I did not make it.
Catherine did not.
Well,
Okay.
I think we would want at least a brief presentation for the
Yes.
record.
Yes. Yes, and I'm willing to go when it's my turn here.
Yeah, and Daniel can share you can,
Yep, you're all set. You're ready to
Yeah.
go.
you can
Okay.
share your screen now.
Good, so Karina will be the AV person and do
Karina.
all that good stuff.
Hello.
Karina,
Hi, everyone.
Yay.
Good, so good evening, Andrea, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the commission. It's good to see everyone. This is our third session, the first being an introduction where we gave an overview history of 107 Main Street. And then we went over our proposal for what's essentially a two-prong proposal, which is to perform significant space reduction on what has accumulated over the course of 50 years now under the stewardship of the church, and to come up with a solution that could turn this historic house back to the single family home that it appears to be. And so the first drawing I would like to show is AS 100. Which if we could, is that up on the screen? Very
Yes.
good. Karina, if you could zoom into the site itself, about 50%, perfect. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of what we did at the introductory session, but it does bear repeating that the space reduction strategy that we're proposing really does bring this whole building back into line of the height, scale, mass, and just overall sort of fabric of the adjoining neighborhood. And you can see that in this, what this picture shows. It's a site plan that is a photograph, obviously, over which we have overlaid our proposal in orange. What you see, and Karina, if you could outline that orange part, you will see that this is what our new proposal involves. And it involves removal of the very large monolithic function hall that is on the back, as well as the utility building that was put there somewhere in the 19th century or the 20th century. So what I'd like to do is not go through all of the history of what I would like to do is remind everyone of a couple of very important historical images that we are fortunate enough to be able to refer to. And Karina, if you could go to the timeline. So again, this is the timeline that we worked up of the history of this important house. It's starting with, if you could scroll down more. This is sort of our, image that we just keep looking at. It's, as we've discussed before, the building was transformed from a mansard Second Empire house into the colonial revival that we know it as now. And we also know that there was an L coming off the back of it, which we are in spirit replicating with what we're doing. And then we also know that there was, from this painting, a carriage house, which also had a mansard roof. None of these things are things that you would automatically expect, but they were things we were delighted to find when we really researched the history. So Karina, if you could scroll down.
Susan, may I ask a question at that picture? So the thing with the mansard roof is not what's sitting there now. It's not an old.
I don't think so. It's not. So the thing with the mansard roof, from the extant images that we have, I think it was exactly aligned in the back. Karina, if you could go to the historic Hingham map by scrolling down. Yes, we see that it's much further back than the existing building that is there now.
But that's
So
not
we
to
think-
scale, right? That's somebody's sketch. It's not a scale.
It's somebody, yeah, but yeah, it's all we have. But you do bring up a good point, is that something was on a foundation onto which that utility building was built.
Right.
And we think that it was, we talked about this since our site visit, and your observations were super to be able to, wonder what that structure was or what that foundation is. And we just don't know whether that's the location of this or not. It's interesting you talk about scale, because the illustration here shows it much further back than the painting shows it. So, I think it's safe to say that we know that there was something back there. We just don't know where its exact location was.
So you're saying maybe the foundation could have been from this structure, but then it came down for whatever reason and they built like a carriage house on top of it?
That would be my best guess.
Oh. Interesting.
So
just-
given that,
So
and then again, of course, we also talked about this little outhouse that was right to the the left of the building there that was also part of what you would have seen really from the street.
Mhm.
So what we learned in our site visit, Karina, if you could go to the site plan that has the overall site drawing. Well, now let's stay on this one, actually. This is a good way to discuss what we saw together as a group on Saturday. You really see in this image that, Karina, if you could run your mouse over the mature foliage that represents this sort of wooded area that shows up in virtually every picture that I've ever seen of the house. The landscape architect intends to keep that. But the reason that I mention that is that when you stand on Main Street, which represents a distance of 250 feet from the street to the offset projection that we're proposing, you see that it's very difficult to not only to see it, but we believe that what we're proposing is leaving the essential historic reading of the building intact. And what it is as a solution to a problem that we have here in 2023 is that we don't want to build a big long arcade that goes to a barn in the back, because we think that would bring back the relentless situation of that long addition that we would that we're trying to relieve. In other words, I consider it detrimental right now that when you stand at viewpoint A and you look up the driveway, you see a very long ahistoric appendage. Okay, we will be keeping that condition, but what we're doing is minimizing it, because if in looking at the idea that was generated at our discussion on site of putting a garage back on at the location that it is, you would have to have such a long covered walkway to make that a viable garage for a house this size, that we just thought that would be too much construction.
Why would we need I'm losing you a little bit there. Why would we need something covered? Barns were separate from the houses because there's smelly animals in them and.
Yes, yeah.
They wouldn't have been-
Exactly. So the reading, the Weibleys need a 2-car garage. You know, they've got a family of kids and 2 cars that need kept covered and accessed from the inside of the house. And also in speaking to realtors about being able to sort of make the capital investment of this whole project work, an attached garage was seen as almost a necessity.
But they're in a historic district.
Yes.
They know that.
Yes, we do. We do.
And we don't normally allow the barn to be attached to the house. For the same reason, smelly animals.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know that it's today's lifestyle, but it didn't when this house was built.
Yes, and we understand that. The thing that allows us to feel good about the proposal is the distance from the public way that this intervention actually represents. So that's the site plan. I'd like to just sort of keep on that, the spirit of those comments. Why don't we look down at the photograph just to refresh our memory? This is really only a couple of weeks old. Karina, if you could zoom right in, the leaves were about 30% on the trees at this point. You can see that from the street, what is proposed is actually recessed far back quite a bit. And if you go off in this direction, you can see that what you see right now is a detached garage and an addition to the house. But you know, it's not only is it not very visible, but it is you know, it's pretty monolithic. And the fact that it doesn't really break up at all is what I think of as a detriment. Our proposal is actually to break the forms up and put them in the approximate location of the old barn. Now, there was an interesting deliberation at the last introductory discussion where it was proposed that we might either detach the garage and move it away from the house and really make them feel separate. And then another commissioner thought it would be useful to move it in. So those were different suggestions. We tested both of them, and we actually came to the conclusion, and we discussed this a little bit at the site visit. We think that we've arrived at a good balance. Again, the idea is to make it crystal clear what is original and historic on this iconic house, and be able to have a preservation student walk up and make it crystal clear what came along in 2023 and what was here previous to that. And that's a very conservative approach to preservation, where it makes it clear upon a little bit of inspection what's new and what was built in 1865, although they all hold together. So that was the goal. That was the goal with the project. And if, Karina, you could go to the CAD elevation of what you would see from Main Street. I can show you what the result is as a before and after. The one above is the drawing that shows the utility building, and on the left, and then off to the right, it shows the fire escape and other sort of utility structures that were clagged onto the back of the function hall that the church built. And the proposal that we are offering is shown at the bottom. This is about as prominent as you would ever see it in any angle. It's actually never viewed from an angle that offers what's behind there with this much prominence. But what we have done is show it in true elevation, and in pink, we show what the new proposals are. At the meeting, we went through materials. We intend to replicate the corbels, you might call them modillions, that occur in the dormers. We're going to seek to replicate the slate roof in its pattern and hopefully in its material. Although that will take, I think, some source work once we are actually in construction to find the ideal slate for that roof, because as we saw as a group, that slate is very, very thin, and we will need to work with a skilled roofer to source exactly where we get that slate and how we get it to match the original mansard pattern. We are also, could you zoom in on this a little bit? So we're proposing clapboard siding with the exposure to match the existing. The even freeze profiles are all derived from the original mansard L at the back of the house. That again was seen in the painting. We're proposing decorative window horns to match the existing, and the actual trim will be tooled to match what's on the Colonial Revival release of the articulation of the house. The dormers will have flush board cladding, which are finished to match the existing dormers. They will be Marvin Ultimate 2/2 double hung in this location, which we believe will give you that signal that this, although a historic a historic window type, actually matches the other 2/2s that you find on the back of the house. And it actually, the 2/2 is actually a considered to be the purest form of Second Empire window pattern. So that's why we decided to use that here. But I'd be curious to hear what your feedback is. And then we are showing in the front, we are returning the plinth in the front with the balustrade to its historic state. It had been removed at some point, we think, because there was leakage in the basement, but technology now allows you to make things a lot more waterproof, so we'd like to put it back. And then as you move over to the right-hand side,
Susan, do you mind clarifying on that item, just the face of the plinth base? Like, is it, what's going to be the material of the face? It's
so
stone?
we're hoping that it's going to be some sort of stone. Granite would be ideal, but we're also realistic about that, and the fact that that could become cost prohibitive. If it is, we will propose an alternate.
Okay, that was the only.
We think that was a granite base initially.
Okay, that was the only item when going through it that I feel like we might need more clarity on to follow.
Okay.
Assume with Andrea potentially, but I
Okay,
just didn't see that called out.
yeah. Fair enough. Well, also, we looked at the window proposal in sash form. We held it up against the existing windows to see how the actual, the grill and thickness assembly compares. So the group was able to review that on site, which was helpful. And other than that, it's a big package, so I could have you here all night. I'm more inclined to ask, since this is our third time, whether you guys have specific questions and concerns for us.
I guess I'll start because I spoke up just a moment ago. For me, that's understanding that piece of it. That's actually the face of the street, what the under the balustrade, what that material is going to be is just the question mark because it wasn't called out. So I just want that noted. That should be a follow up.
So maybe it's helpful. We are looking, the landscape architect outside of this application is beginning to develop granite gutters and other details that are happening in the ground plane using historic formwork. And once he gets that granite identified, we will coordinate with him so that everything holds together and it looks like it was done under the same contract.
So this is a poured terrace? A poured concrete terrace?
No, it would be, the hope is that it would have a stone base, or alternatively, if cost was prohibitive, we may come back and propose that is got a concrete foundation wall, but that has stone veneer. And when I say veneer, veneer can be 6 inches thick when it's stone. on top of the front of that. And once we get the landscape architects details, we will work with him so that they hold together. But the answer to that is that the base of that is actually pin. We don't know that yet.
I guess,
So-
can I just
so
ask
what-
the commission's advice, or is what do you think would be appropriate to put there? I'm worried about granite. It's going to cost an absolute fortune. I think it's going to make it cost prohibitive to do that. So
I'm-
No.
do we have any options?
I'm just trying to understand the top of the plinths, as you're calling them. Are they plinths? Is that what you're calling them? Is it decking or is there like a porch?
So it is a walkout porch. Karina, could you show the site plan and we can show what we're proposing?
So it's going to be wood top on the top.
Yeah, the wood, the bollards or the balusters would be wood to match the historic photographs that we have.
Gotcha. Okay. I
Is
just,
the photo? that
Commissioner
you-
Daley, actually, if you know what would be really helpful, if we went to the timeline and we looked at the original plinth, it could show you what where we got this idea.
yeah, I recall the picture. I love that you're recreating that. I'm just looking.
Well, it's there, yeah, it's here. But then more importantly, it is, if you could just scroll down real quick. And I'm just using this as a point of, okay, if you could zoom into that, it would be really. So this was the original, If you
That's the
really
actual
look
house?
closely at, yeah, and the steps are the same, but this plaza or plinth, as sometimes these front porch plazas are called, what we think it did was it came around, it literally came along the front of what's the present porch, and you can see the balustrade on the top of the porch too that we're proposing to return. If you could go to the plan. Sorry, I'm whipping you all over the place.
No, that's very helpful. And it looks like there's some field stone wall of some kind. It doesn't actually look like granite. It looks like a field.
Yeah, could be.
Um,
Yes, you're right. You're right. That's right.
And is
Maybe,
your balustrade,
maybe there's the example to pursue.
yeah, and is the balustrade, have you done a deep dive into that, like duplicating as best you can?
Yeah, we have some of it existing on the side of the house.
Karina, could you go to
We would-
your Revit model and zoom in? Yeah,
would
so
like-
Karina took what is on the existing house and redrew it in its profile. And it looks like the pictures, the old pictures. We're just copying what the remnant that was
That's
there.
fine. I just didn't know if that, I don't know how you would recreate that at this point. You'd have to have them all turned. That would be prohibitive, I would think.
Well, you have them turned, but there's also profiles available commercially that come pretty close. And if we were to get it turned, we would bring the alternate manufactured turned baluster to Andrea for review.
Because what you have drawn and what you might actually be able to source might be different.
Yeah, I had these on my last house, Catherine, and there were only 3 left when I bought the house, and I went through this, and there's a lot of options out there now. There's GFRC ones that are a little more noticeable. There are some made out of like PVC materials, like an AZAC trim style that then get painted. They do still make wood ones. So there are a lot of options. They're kind of like the gutters, where the most prominent historic shapes have been replicated now, so they are available. I don't know if this house would have had it. The house I had was similar era. It was actually a brick wall around. I don't know if this house would have had that because there's no other brick anywhere else. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was a field stone at some point. Usually when they were granite, from what I've seen in the past, the steps would be matching also.
Yeah.
And so those steps look more like marble to me in this photo. So it looks like it's more an accent, not a matching. So I don't know. Those would be my thoughts for direction.
Okay.
Can I jump in? Thinking about the chair's observation of connected garages. If I look at page A101 underbar H of the plans, if we could put that up on the screen.
Yeah. Coming up. There you go.
I'm still seeing the photograph of the steps. Yes, and if we could zoom in down on the garage and trying to respond to the resist a little bit the attached garage. I wonder whether you guys had considered the idea of something more of a breezeway. And actually, as I was looking at this image, let me suggest something at the back of the garage. Imagine some doors on the back of the garage exiting out into the backyard, giving access perhaps to lawn equipment in and out of the garage and into the backyard. But more to my suggestion, if you will, I beg your indulgence, is imagine a porch roof extending from the back of the garage and then forming a breezeway over towards the main body of the house. And perhaps it feels a little boxed in. If that were open, you could move back and forth from the driveway into the backyard. I could imagine some nice garden chairs underneath the porch roof. It would effectively wind up feeling like and again, this is amateur architect. I'm just wondering if you thought about anything of that sort to try and create some open space between the garage and the building.
No, that's a great observation. And all the questions that you brought up are ones that we've explored. And what we've landed on is the idea of this as being a breezeway that is very, it's all glazed, so it's very light in feeling. And then the purpose for stopping this where it is that this is a breakfast nook that's probably going to be the place where the family spends its most time. And, it's the place where homework's going to get done. It's going to be a casual eating spot. It's going to be very, very well traveled. And when we looked at it, it was really important for us to be able to see to the back without looking at the back of the garage. So we've placed the garage where it is in order to avoid that view shed, because really the only view out to this incredibly grand property that's here is from the living space, which is here, and from this breakfast nook area. And we landed on this sort of calibration on where everything is to sort of come up with a decent view out the back of their wonderful property from the spaces inside.
Can I offer a different Can I offer a different counterpoint to Justin's thought? I interpret this differently than I think maybe Carol and you did, which is yes, it's a garage. However, the doors are facing the other direction. It's set back, the way it's attached. I viewed it as almost mimicking, like, you don't know it's a garage unless you walk up there, right? So I kind of envision this of, is that an addition? Is that a part of the house? But the one thing I did like about it is that when you do start to get a little closer, hard to see that breezeway, but that it is a more contemporary attachment, is that I think it distinguishes. Some people may look at it and say, oh, that was a detached structure that was there, got connected, it was the old stable. But also knowing, kind of understanding the grand plan for this property is, I think there is going to be a barn at some point, or hopes of a barn at some point. So, you know, to me, it kind of checks that box. Was, well, was this maybe the guest house or a carriage house and it got attached at some point? So it doesn't strike me as a non-starter just with the way it is on this property. And I know that, Carol, I totally agree with you. It is kind of out there. My house has a detached garage in town. It would make no sense to ever attach it because it doesn't fit the form, function, and everything like that, and it's not really appropriate. But I think the way this is able to do it, given it has the size lot, it has such massing with the original part of the house, I think there's a way to do it that, and I think they've kind of threaded the needle and found it. So, you know, I know that one of the things we always hear is how you let attached garages come in, and, you know, I don't think it's a rule one way or the other. It's a taking into account the specific property, historic sensitivity, and how it's being done. It's not one way or the other in my mind. And so I feel like this does work in this instance. I don't know if it would always.
It's probably the least offensive attached garage design
Yeah,
I've ever seen.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think, Eric, you wanted to say something. So
Yeah, I really appreciate, and sort of, I think Carol's educated me a bit about sort of the history of that, the detached garage and Hingham in particular. But I sympathize with Dan's comments, and what I really wanted to ask, because when I was there, I kind of made a point, and I don't think you'd really be able to see it from the public way, the breezeway. I sort of walked down the sidewalk. You held up the sign to show us the corner of the garage, which was really thoughtful. I think this might be a case of, and what I really appreciate, you've been very forthcoming with the design as a whole, but we certainly only have preview of what's from the public way. So I think in some ways, I really appreciate that you've been forthcoming, but it may detrimental because then we get caught up in all the elements of it. And I just want to sort of maybe ask, my understanding is I don't think you'll see that breezeway because it's tucked back a little bit. And the topography of the site, it'd be very challenging.
That was
You're right,
definitely
you
our
won't,
intention.
it will appear from the public way. I think the trick is that it appears detached until you get way up the hill and then you realize.
Right, that notching in does a
Yeah.
lot to that for that.
yeah, and I think I said the comment in our formal that I thought you were going to have to pull the garage out more to accomplish that, and I was surprised when you're out there, just the geometry of things that it definitely functions that way right now.
Could we zoom in on the photograph B on AS 100? Just zoom in on that a little bit. I think my concern is not so much the breezeway, but and the height of the garage. There was also an image with the height of the existing 3-car garage, before and after the existing 3-car garage and what the new garage would look like. And I'm just wondering, height wise, how high is the new garage? How high was the existing garage, and how far are they apart? And my concern
Let's
is
look.
because it's closer, that it's going to appear bigger, even though we're reducing the mass, it's going to appear bigger because it's attached to the house and right there.
Okay, let's look. 19 feet, 8.5 inches overall height for proposed, and then existing was gonna snap it. We'll do it from there. Yeah. 19 feet, 8.5. So
So because it's the same height, but pulled quite a bit forward by how many feet? I'm not even, it's gonna appear much bigger. And so I guess that's my concern. It's now gonna be more prominent. Well,
I-
the other one is,
Yes and no. I think I think the other thing to it is you're seeing less of it, but also you're not seeing asphalt shingle roof facing you with that slope, which really hits you now. Instead,
Yeah.
you're getting actually detail in architecture. That's
Yeah.
softer, I would say.
50 feet is big though. That's a lot.
but in the overall scope of 250 feet. It's a difference of 250 and right now it's 250 feet as proposed and existing is from there to there. How long? Give us 1 second.
I think you're on the other
Now
side of the
those-
slide.
301, yeah, so it's, it's
20%.
20 something, 20% prouder than it is now, but the overall elevation is half of what it was.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Susan.
Yes.
One of the original thoughts was to make a separate 3-car garage.
Yes.
And I wonder if it would be, I don't know if you have those sketches available, but that might be an interesting point to show what a detached would do.
Yeah, we do have that. That was a very early incarnation that we actually abandoned thinking that it would have a significant effect on the view from the street. We'll show you what we came up with.
Yeah, understood,
I'm gonna have
because,
to dig. It'll take about a minute, but we'll show you what we have.
okay, that would be very helpful, I think, because to address the idea of a separate garage.
I agree, Andrew. I think that's a good point. We did explore detached garages, but we felt like it was more detrimental to the house. It just seemed more prominent than turning it and tucking it back a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I sold it as the necessity for attachment, and it isn't that. You're right. We had gone through that exploration, and we'd like to show it to you.
I also just wanted to point out that it's hard to see the scale here, but if we didn't do the breezeway and the attached garage, if the house ends where the breakfast nook is, and we were to put money into that existing structure, it's so far from the end of the house. And I know it's a historic house, but it's still like, I don't know, Andrew, Susan can measure it, but I feel like it's 75 feet from the back of the house.
Yeah, and that's when we called our realtor consultants, and they said that would be a tough hit to the. Okay, so are you sharing? Can you guys see this?
See,
Yeah.
it's 3-car garage, it looks like.
So this was a very early scheme. Option A. And it seemed, and we moved it back as far as a designer of a house for a family in this era would responsibly put it, we thought. But the result was something that all of us sort of thought was too much from
Dare
the.
say the impact on the streetscape would be very different.
If it was in that current location, but if it was pushed back, we'd be looking at sort of the same thing, but more beautiful.
Yeah, I'm just reluctant to pour a lot of money into something though that's 75 feet from the house.
Yeah, I hear that. Or even a compromise in between the two. I wonder what the impact of that would be. You don't have any elevations of the of this,
Mhm.
do you?
There you go. And, you know, again, these were sketches, guys. These weren't things that we thought would go into the public presentation, but this is, you know, this was just a very preliminary guess at what a 3-car garage could look like.
And we honestly just didn't like the way it looked and we kind of eliminated it.
Pretty much
That-
because of its size. We also thought it competed with the house.
Mhm.
That was gonna be my comment, is I feel like your latest design, in my opinion, is much more subservient to the rest of the home, and it's the fact that it's turned and rotated, you can't see the garage doors is a nice impact, so I still would prefer the current design.
And did you do a plan with the jogged back by 5-6 feet?
We sketched it, but
Elevation of that and how that might.
we sketched it, but its impact on the back of the house was tough.
On the
And
views from the breakfast room and.
yeah,
You just lose a lot of the value of the house is the land. And I would hate to
Yeah.
cut off that whole back section, right? We have a huge hill here, which we're preserving because of the copper beech tree. So there's no real outside egress there. Then we have a lot of driveway on the other 2 elevations. So our real chance for sweeping lawn on the property is directly out the back.
so I have an idea of another diagram to show you. And that is a scoping diagram that was done by the landscape architect. And that might make a lot of these moves make sense and hopefully convey that our approach to the historic landscape has, goodness, that's too bad.
Susan, can I ask you something while you're doing that? Looking at the sketch we have, oops, just left us. Your latest design,
Okay, so let's go back.
back with just one.
All right.
What is if I'm concerned that we may not be able to take the old barn down with that granite foundation and so forth. Could you if you do the design the way you see it here, could you come up the drive and go around behind those? Is there enough space between those 2 buildings? To
Yes.
drive through?
Yeah.
So could we discuss demolishing the old barn another time and just let you sort of go ahead with the house design? Is
I'm
that
totally fine with that. Yeah, my priority is getting a functioning house, kitchen, because we're moving in 2 months. So
And they've got school age kids too.
Oops.
And I think that's not on our current application either, so.
So there's an existing foundation to the future barn?
no, I think we're talking about the existing garage utility structure here. There's nothing where the future barn is.
But the existing garage has a granite foundation.
Correct.
Their application.
It's got a partial granite foundation. There's one side of it is granite that has been sort of repaired and pointed. And then the other 2 walls are kind of just masonry rubble foundation. This is the current barn.
Right.
And do we have a sense for the age of that barn?
No, we have to do that.
It's, yeah, so it's not on the application, right?
It's not this application.
Right.
Right,
Well,
but
the
it
application-
impacts the current application.
What is it talking
opposed
about
to-
then? And it says demolish an existing freestanding garage.
Yeah, it is on the current application.
It is.
But I thought we had to do two separate ones, Andrea, because don't you have to check the box for demolish, or is it checked?
Yeah, actually, technically, we should be dealing with demolishing the addition to the existing house
Yes.
Right.
and then taking up
Zoom in on that.
the other as a demolition that we look at on its own. So,
And I'm totally fine with saving the existing utility garage structure for another meeting. That is definitely not a huge priority for us right now. The priority is the function hall and reconfiguring the back so that it works.
I think that's a great idea.
So I
Except
think-
that the garage, the current garage as it stands, it kind of affects the new garage proposal. You can't really look at them separately.
So what's important to understand about that, that outbuilding is that it's got an interesting, perhaps one historic foundation wall. It's clearly been through fires because there's a lot of charred wood on the surfaces in the basement. And it's obviously something burned down and something was replaced because it's all 2x4s and 2x6s. And it's clearly, it's old, but there's a couple of what I would venture to guess are historic beams in there, but everything else is pretty contemporary construction.
But we don't think that the original carriage house that we see in the photographs and in the paintings was located where this is. I mean, to me, that's what it's telling me, that this rubble foundation, and then the granite on maybe the more exposed side, that this was the current location. This was the original location for that carriage barn. And if that's the case, then I think we have to consider what that impacts the whole application.
I agree, but as I look at it, I'm trying to think how to let them move forward. It's a huge project. They're doing so much to it. There's still a lot to decide and so forth. I noticed the windows are different in the front than they were in the original sketches. And if we can hold off on that 3-car, whatever it is, until further
Well,
consideration.
There's another caveat to that though, because I don't know if this isn't our purview, and I don't know if it'll become an issue. Is technically there's a limitation on how many garage bays that you can have per.
that's true.
So it's limited to 3, which they're
Right.
currently at. So I don't know if they're technically, it's not our purview. But I don't know if they're gonna want, before they can permit the new 3-car garage, if planning is gonna want to know if we're gonna approve demolition or repurposing of
The-
the existing 3-car garage,
The new one's only 2, right?
Correct.
right?
Nevertheless,
But we
you can only
can't
have
have 5. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there because it feels like we're going to have to come back and do some more work on the existing garage. Could we seek approval today for the back of the house up to the breezeway
What I'm thinking.
Yeah, up to the breezeway. That makes
and
sense.
not including the breezeway in the garage? Because I feel like that's connected, but that gives us a functioning kitchen, family room.
Right.
room.
And then what about do you guys want to do more due diligence on what you want to do on the plinth?
Yeah, I think I need to
We've
toss
got, for the, sorry, Laura, I didn't mean to cut you off. But for the front, we have to specify materials, and it sounds like we have to source the bollards. And that's something that we could certainly do. On the back, would it be possible to get, if we left the 3-bay, yeah. It's just, there's so much expense for the Weibleys to have to start and stop construction.
Well, it seems like you can get an awful lot done up to the breezeway, and that could be, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying is, when you have the framers there, you wanted to frame everything. When you
Yeah.
have, you're trying to keep the one singular trade moving through the process.
Yeah, ideally, it's much more beneficial to have, while I've got foundations being poured
Yeah.
and framing being done, to have it all done at once. But honestly, I'd
And
like to go away with this meeting with some approval versus no approval, if that's the compromise. And I do want to price out the granite and the deck, and I think we need to come back and specify materials. Again, that's a nice to have, but it's not a necessity for us moving in.
Just looking at that front elevation, you've got windows in the foundation there. Are you gonna be able to put a deck across there?
We'll lose the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, those windows would have been added later. We don't know when those windows came. But, that would have been a granite foundation, areaway windows weren't that common.
Sure.
I think that probably went in when they redid that foundation there after they removed the plinth.
Can I offer one other suggestion? Then I think we have another site visit to meeting because we really didn't focus on the garage
Right.
during the last site visit. Would it be possible, given that Catherine has some reservations about massing and the sizing of that, to put a story pole in just on the one corner of the garage?
Yeah.
Addition?
And also maybe an overlay with the streetscape from that extreme angle off to the left. That would be useful too. Some kind of
I just want to understand
some kind of
exactly.
streetscape photograph with a superimposed 3D. We've seen it a few times. Some of the other architects are able to do it.
I think what Catherine's looking for is she wants you to go, that's photo D. I think it's, if you zoom, that one there, if you were to take that
So do you
angle-
want like a photo montage of the 3D model
Yeah.
spliced into that, into a
If that's
photorealistic rendering?
Can you draw a story pole right on there?
I think
Yeah,
seeing it in
could you-
person is
could
the better way to go.
Right.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
story
it won't really show. Yeah, it's gonna be really
Right.
hard.
It was very telling, and I understand you were obviously busy. It was very telling when we were on the site, standing on the sidewalk. And Susan was standing out there with her hand up in the air saying, my hand's 7.5 feet up in the air. Like, you can start to get a sense of scale.
Yeah.
It was really helpful, and I think a story pole will really help you visualize it better, Catherine.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think just figuring out the existing garage is in those two, that combination is important.
Yeah, can I ask a crazy question too? Is I don't know if you guys have thought about, I know you guys had talked about a barn. I don't know what the shape and the size, I know you're looking at the back. Would you ever consider turning that existing, kind of rebuilding a more actual barn structure over the existing foundation or in that location?
We did, it's
Yeah.
just so far from the house. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, the main reason is when you come out the back of the house in the winter, the Lincoln apartments are right there when the leaves are off the trees. And we wanted to block that. So that's why in the existing location, it doesn't do anything to help us with privacy from the Lincoln apartments.
But
can you
Dan,
pull up the
wasn't your
site plan?
suggestion more that the proposed garage that we have before us is?
No,
the
what I was saying
garage
is
plan?
stick with the current plan, and then
Right.
they have future plans to want to put a separate barn on. So I
Yeah,
was
but a real barn, not a
yeah,
garage.
a real barn, not a garage.
Yeah.
It would not be a garage, it would be a barn. And one of the
Right.
main purposes is shielding the Lincoln apartments.
Can you pull up the site plans?
An admirable role.
Can I just add one
But-
point?
And can I jump in and just say, I think the proposed plans tonight are an appropriate compromise on considerations about attached garages and so forth. And my personal view is that I'd love to find a way that the applicants can come out tonight with a way forward. I don't quite know what to do about the garage. This barn notion sounds very, very promising. If that can be, memorandum. I don't know what we would say, but I just wanted to say, I think the plans as proposed, I'm persuaded are appropriate.
Thank you. I'd like to add one point too, as you're photoshopping the next image that you were just talking about doing. Remember, we can't consider foliage.
No,
You have
but
to
I
defend the
don't
trees
think that
bit.
we're gonna be able to do a convincing, so Photoshop, the limitations of it aren't such that even if I were to just sort of eliminate the foliage from a rendering,
Mhm.
what you would see from the angle of where you stand on the street, that would be a very, very difficult thing to angle in Photoshop. Dan, do you agree?
Yeah, I think you just need to go there and see it, and I think a story pole will
Yep.
really.
Does
be the
anyone else
difference.
have concerns about the existing garage being the site of the original? If I'm being nitpicky, but it does have a historic foundation and a historic.
It seems like it was a barn.
I would say I would say it's not built. It may have components that were reused from something historic, Catherine. I don't, based on walking on the back and looking at it, the framing members are certainly newer, I guess 20s.
Right, but I
that's-
guess I'm thinking of
but
the
then the-
actual siting of it, not
I
so
would
much
say
the
the-
framing that we know is like a newish.
Yeah, the way that the foundation is, I would say that it was more repurposing and using of components more than anything else, and not the actual original foundation.
So too.
They're not laid in a way that would tell me somebody had plans to have that building there for a long time, like they originally would have built it. It seemed more like, hey, we have these pieces left over, let's throw them in the back foundation. We don't have enough, so we'll just do something else on the sides. I don't think the original, given this historic prominence of this house, I don't think that would have originally been constructed that way.
I don't think we have to guess about it though, Dan.
Yeah.
Julian Loring's book must have covered all this. It's 1850s building. He would have marked whether there was a garage there or a barn there. Has somebody gone to the Historic Society yet and looked all this up?
Yes, I've been through all the Julius Loring outlines. I've been through all the Fannin and Laner inventories.
Yeah.
I've been to the Historic Society. I did the reference librarian at the library.
Yep.
Spent a week and a half researching this for me and came up with everything that he says exists in the Hingham library system. I went through the building permits, which is a big box that you have to go through them one by one. But I went and I found everything since this was built that had been documented in the building department, and there was a lot. It's all in the timeline. And then finally, the materials that Andrea gave me from their files. So we've turned over all the stones, I think. If you go to the timeline, you can see that all the references that have been exhausted to try to document everything here. And there wasn't anything that I could find, nor was there anything in the Dorothy Monroe paper. Dorothy Monroe in the 60s did a really beautiful, maybe it was the 70s, a really beautiful narrative about the history of the project as a project at Radcliffe College, and it was actually reviewed there.
I think that was terrible.
Was what?
No, sorry.
Anyway, back to the question is, when does the barn show up first? In all this?
Can I add something as a neighbor?
Sure.
In 1857, like the 3-car garage, that wasn't a garage. There was no cars. It was horses. So
The carriage house.
the garage, it was probably where the barn was, and then they changed the barn into a three you know, not 3-story, but a 3-car garage. Once cars came in the 1900s, you know? So I don't see it as historic, even though there's a couple of pieces of beams in there or whatever that, like Dan said, were repurposed or something.
We have a customer waiting. That we were supposed to start at 7:50, so anybody want to offer a summary of tonight, where we are?
Well, I think we got to make sure there's no other abutters or people from the public that want to speak on this. I think you should give them a
They
moment.
notified, Andrea? Andrea?
Yes, they've been notified.
Okay,
Yeah, I just saw a few names on here. I wasn't sure if they're here for the next meeting or if they wanted to speak to this.
oh, they're still on? I don't see them. Anybody like to speak?
Fair enough.
I want to speak as a neighbor. Thanks for buying that property. The plans look beautiful. Good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
We're at 48 Main and we love that property. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that.
Could you give your name, please? And your 48 Main.
48 Main, Richard and Janet Young.
Great, got it.
Thanks, Andrea.
I guess my question is, obviously, we all want them to be able to move forward. Seems like there's a little bit of an impasse, but I mean, they were gracious enough to do a site visit and we're out there. It feels hard to ask for another one from them. I don't know.
Well, I mean, am I the only one who's got reservations about this barn?
No, I
Garage, this 3-bay garage that could have been the site of the original,
think we need to be cautious about taking it down.
I think just to be clear, because I think the path forward that they were asking for tonight is that 3-car garage stays as is for right now, and they'll come back to us later for that.
Its
Yeah.
future has not been decided.
so we're gonna go,
Right.
we're gonna approve up into the breezeway. That's our,
Well, is it possible? I'd also heard that we could possibly pursue approval for the garage and leave the historic leave the utility structure intact before as we figure out what to do with that, since it's got vehicle clearance.
I think the issue you're gonna have with that is that's technically, if we don't approve your demo, you're technically having a 5-car garage or 5-bay garage.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
That's
So I would
That's
ask the
not our
commission-
department. Can we approve it anyway?
yeah,
approved
but
by
I just,
aesthetics.
not our department, we can approve it, but just I want them going eyes wide open.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because obviously if we're going to go back and revisit this from the breezeway back, what would the commission like to see with that structure? I mean, if anything's original, it's the foundation and not what's on top. So I'm just, if we're going to go back and Susan, Karina and I are going to discuss how to proceed with that structure, what would you ideally like to see done with that? Well, I'm not sure how we move forward in any other different thinking than we've gone through already.
Yeah, and to add to what Laura said too, I don't think that we will be able to reuse. If we were to say, we love the idea of putting a 3-car garage on that site, I would have a really hard time, and Karina, help me understand this too, figuring out how to, I think we would have to remove the entire foundation to make a garage that would hold.
two stories, that needs to have a finished above.
Well, right now, the foundation is in really weird condition. You know, it's these sort of crooked pointed granite massive pieces of granite, and then there's just sort of, it's
It's a
just
real
sort of,
wild card.
yeah,
I'd almost say it'd serve better because the foundation, that's all that's maybe historic as part of the landscape approach, like using it as, I think if we're concerned about that garage and maybe the foundation, there might be a way to integrate the
It's a
foundation to some
hardscape.
clever,
feature.
some clever landscape approach or something.
I love that idea of using the foundation.
I think
did-
that's a great idea, Eric, because, you're talking about the expense of granite. I don't know if anything in that foundation would be suitable for the front.
Isn't
Or
that
it's
an
a
interesting
plinth.
idea?
Yeah, I guess, I guess I asked Catherine Carroll, like, I just don't see a way where the garage would end up on that foundation, just because the
Right.
state of it.
right.
So like, even if we don't want to, to me, they feel independent just because I just don't see how even if we really wanted the new garage to be there, I feel like there'd be a lot of challenges to actually
I
accomplish
don't want
that.
the new garage to be there, and I don't think
Right.
Catherine's saying that either.
Right.
I
Saying
think the
is,
proposed garage is better.
yes, we agree that, but we're not willing to take down a building till we know what it is.
Right.
Agreed.
Obviously
Yeah,
old.
I agree.
It's got 5-foot granite capstones, something went on there, and I'd like to know what it is before we rip it down. So to keep the project moving, I say we go ahead and say yes to what we're looking at and just don't demolish that old building till we find out what's left of it and get somebody in there to tell us what it is.
Can I
So
ask
we
a
might be able to
question?
speak with Mr. Clancy and find out, if we were to close up those 3 bays,
Yeah.
maybe
That's a
we can
possibility.
have the 2 bays in the garage, keep what's there, just affix the doors so it's not an operational garage. It is literally becoming a barn. The Weibleys can have their 2-car garage. And we've gone from 3 bays to 2, which the building inspector will like.
You like
And
that?
go from there.
Can I ask a question just quickly? I'm just thinking out loud. Is it just the foundation that you're worried about us keeping and not the structure on top of it? Is there a way that we can creatively use, I think, as you guys said, just the base, as Eric suggested, but remove the top?
Well, we
Is
don't know
that-
that yet. I think that's the
Okay.
part
I
that's
think we're
missing.
pushing the pause button on that, try to get something approved
Yeah,
tonight.
let's get somebody climbing up in there to see if there is old beams, as it is an old barn. We just don't know. We stood on the outside and made a glance and said, here's what we think, and we don't know. And there are a lot of people in town who can tell us that by looking at it. But our mission is to preserve, protect, and defend. That's an old building. We can tell it's parts of it are old. Let's give it the respect it deserves and find out what it is before we say take it down. That's all I'm
How would
saying.
we go about that? Who can we, like a Peter Bickford or a,
Yeah.
Ben Wilcox?
Or Ben
Yeah, well,
Wilcox.
there's
or
Ben, he's
Roger
here.
Lloyd,
We'll
or-
make him look at it.
there are lots of
Okay, and
people.
maybe Ben can go independently and we can just go on his assessment and.
Well, we can ask him. He's right here.
He's right here waiting for his turn. Which we
Yeah.
really should move on. So is
We-
someone going to propose the part that we've talked about?
Ben's here. Tell
Yeah.
us, Ben, do
No.
you think, would you be willing to look at that structure?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There you go.
Thank
So,
you.
I'll make a motion to issue
Great.
a certificate of appropriateness for 107 Main Street located in the Pear Tree Hill Local Historic District. For a rear wing addition and a demolition of an attached church structure in the rear of the building for are we doing for a 2-car garage and breezeway attached to the structure per the plans
Yeah.
dated?
May 4. And
Thank you.
let me point out that there's a beautiful list of materials that have been presented to the commission in the letter from ODH, I'll say.
per the plans dated for May 2023. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, the plans cover everything, so I don't think I need to list out all the materials and
Right.
all the
But
iterations.
we'll
of the
put
building.
those in the minutes.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
And maybe add just the front of the
Oh, yeah,
plinth.
sorry, thank you, right
Yeah,
there.
that piece.
Excluding the
Yes.
front patio plinth and balustrade
Mhm.
front of the house.
Second?
I'll,
Second,
I'll second.
Thanks, Justin. Catherine, how do you vote?
Because we'll end up with two structures and the massing is gonna, if we have the new garage and the existing garage, and we've approved the new garage without understanding the situation with the old garage, I have to say no. I'm sorry. I want to say yes and I want to approve it, but I can't.
Okay, Justin,
aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Carol is an aye. 4-1, thank you.
You're all set.
Did you want to set a site visit or no?
Wow, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. We'll
So
be back
much.
with more details on the plinth and the existing structure, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for wonderful package and plans.
Yes.
Well,
very
thank
nice.
you for all your comments. It's, it's been extraordinarily helpful. Thank you.
Wow.
Okay,
Thank you very much, everyone.
you all.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
now,
Thank you too.
finally, Ben is here, if he's still awake.
Yeah, I am.
You're still with us,
Sorry,
Ben.
Ben.
Thanks for your patience, we appreciate it. You want to present 58 Main Street, Bachelors Row? This is a very exciting project, and you know the whole town is talking about it, right? This is a,
Well, thank you.
go from the beginning and take us through.
Good evening, everyone. This is a proposal for the sort of a reproduction of the Thomas Barker House, built in 1757. You have a set of plans in front of you, I believe. What I'd like to do is start backwards on the last page. We have some photos.
Is somebody going to put them on the screen, or should we get our own copies? For the people at home?
I'm good. I know the property really well.
I don't have a digital copy to put on the screen, Andrea. If you
Yeah,
email me one, I can put it up.
But we have to think about the people watching at home in weeks to come.
Ben, I think you sent me one, didn't you? A
Yeah.
digital. Yeah, I'll find it and we'll do it. Hold on. Okay, should be coming your way.
Yep.
Got it?
Just waiting for it to come through.
Okay. Got it? Yeah,
Yep, I got it now.
good.
Which one do you want me to start with, Ben?
Page 4, there's 4 photographs.
4 photographs. Yep, all right, give me 1 second. This,
There you go.
That's it. You good, Dan?
yep, take it away.
Very good, thanks. So upper left side, you'll see a photograph that was taken in the 1960s. You can see a 55 Chevy in the driveway. That's the exact configuration that the Loring records have all the way back to 1757. It hasn't changed much at all. There was an elderly woman living there at that time. And it stayed like that until the early 1980s when Mr. John Pitts purchased it. Claimed he was very interested in historic preservation, hired Pete Bickford to restore the entire main section of the house, and that's what you see in the bottom left. You've all heard the story. He got a little discouraged with permitting and other authorities and left it like that for about 30 years. And what you see is the upper right-hand side, and it stayed like that until November of 2018. And the bottom right, as you see, what it is today. I'd like to go backwards on this, Dan, to A2, which would be the third page. Right there. So this, you're seeing the driveway side, which is the right side of it. And the plot plan shows the house approximately in the location of the original house, with the exception of moving the rear slightly to get a full 15-foot setback on both sides of the house. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as the original house. The left side is pretty much the same as it was originally. And we can go to A1. And that's the front facade. There's a scale drawing of the photographs you saw on page 4. Pretty much exactly the same. You'll notice 2 small windows in the left elevation. They're smaller than the rest only because that's the stair hall. But everything else you see there is pretty much a scale drawing of the original, from the original photos. On the first page, I have a list of materials. If you haven't read them, I can read them quickly. I'm proposing a front door to match the original from the black and white photos, not the one that was on there last, which was not original to the house. The side door will be a Brosco 15 light fir painted. The front windows will be true divided light with interior storms. The remainder of the windows will be Marvin's or Brosco, most likely Marvin's with true divided light. The window frames are going to be reproduced exactly what was there before. They protrude about 1.5 inches off the face of the building, and they're going to look like a plank frame window. All the trim, it's going to be wood painted, including the right proportions. The corner boards are going to be a full 1 inch thick, so you get a little bit of a reveal between the clapboards and the shingles. The front siding will be clapboards, and the right side will be clapboards also. I don't have any original photos of the right side, but I do of the left, and the original photos on the left were shingled. The house at the last photo from the 60s, it actually had asphalt siding on it, which we're not going to reproduce naturally. The front roof will be red cedar, and the back will be asphalt, to closest I can get to the same color. I am planning on using a granite veneer on the front and right-hand side. Because the house is slightly rotated, that's really all you can see from the street. And I'm proposing the paint colors and light fixture to be decided at a later date. And that's pretty much for the four pages here.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, Catherine.
Are you recreating that L off the back left at all, or just the existing original?
Right now, it's held up with zoning, and I'm offering the Zoning Board of Appeals a completely compliant house with full 15-foot setbacks on front side, on the sides and rears, and at least 25 feet on the front. If I can get some leeway from zoning, I'd like to put that 2-story bump out, which has always been original. A 1-story bump out to the left has been rebuilt many times over the last centuries. I'm not proposing that one. But for this application, it's just the main house.
And then I have a couple of personal questions, just my own interest. I'm wondering what your plans are for the home. And then I'm also wondering what there used to be some kind of foundation in the back that you could see from the street. Is there a plan for that down the road? Thank you.
Not on this application. If I can get the house through zoning, I would be making a future application to rebuild the barn in the back. And that's the existing foundation you're talking about in the rear?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Amazing. What are you gonna do with it? I gotta know.
I'm moving in.
Are you gonna move there? You
Yes,
live
ma'am.
there? I love that. That is so appropriate.
Wonderful.
It is.
I approve.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Ben, can you talk to us about the challenges with the ZBA and when your meeting is? So that maybe we can, and we should, join that meeting.
So the ZBA's position is none yet. It's the building commission's position is through town council that since the building has been torn down and it's been now 4 years, I've lost any right to grandfathering the reconstruction of the house. I proposed the fact that the lot is also grandfathered, but because there was once a house on the lot, I've lost the grandfathering to the lot also. That's their position. It's currently under appeal to the zoning board of appeals, and that hearing is on June 6th.
What day of the week is that? And what, it's probably at 7? June 6th is what? What?
Tuesday,
Okay. And it's at 7 probably, right?
I believe so. It's Zoom only.
Yeah, okay.
So for you who have dealt with ZBA before, they're not allowed to talk to anyone after appeal is filed.
Okay.
So you can't get much information, and that's the way the law is.
Ben, may I ask you, when the town demolished it, were there any salvageable pieces in there, mantles or anything at all? Or was it completely gone at that point?
The house had been gutted for years.
Yeah.
It was gutted when John Pitts did the restoration. The only thing left I could see from some vague photos was the staircase was still there and a fireplace with a beehive oven. No trim to speak of. There was some trim around the fireplace and that was it, but no mantle.
Did he gut it? I was under the impression that some of that stuff was stolen, like the hardware and the cooking hearth and some of the other stuff.
I haven't heard that rumor, but I do know there was almost nothing left under. Fannin and Lehman said there was a substantial fire inside.
Right.
Ben, I was just wondering why, with the windows, I understand you want a true divided light. I'm just curious what made you go with the Brosco in the front with an interior storm as opposed to something else? Such as like doing a simulated divided light with Marvin and then on the front doing a true divided Marvin. Were you just trying to find that single pane glass to replicate that look?
The Marvins don't have the right profiles.
Yeah.
So these may not be Broscos, but they're going to be reproductions of exactly what would have been there at the time, a classic Boston sizing.
Yeah, okay.
The other problem with Marvins is they have a signature heavy lock rail and a heavy bottom rail.
Yeah.
I have ordered Marvins with a cut down bottom rail before. It improves it slightly, but the Muntins aren't correct either.
Are you concerned about being able to meet the energy code?
Yes. So I have to make compromises.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a lot of them here. in order to get the 5 windows that I want, the only way I can meet the energy code is bumping up the interior walls to 8-inch.
Gotcha. So you're gonna do a spray foam with 8-inch to get the R value higher to overcome it.
Well, I'm not a big fan of spray foam, so it'll probably be a equivalent of 2x8 construction on the inside.
Okay.
I did mention to Andrea, as we all know, the energy code is going to change, and we haven't seen it yet. It may change by the time I get a building permit on this, quite frankly.
That's why I was wondering. I've been sitting in. I do envelope work for a living, and I've been sitting on those meetings, and it's not going to be easy for new construction. Historic has a little bit more sensitivity, but you don't fall in that category.
No.
So is this just are we actually trying to approve this tonight, or we wait? I wasn't 100% sure if this was just like
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
And then what happens if the ZBA approves the L?
I would come back for any of that.
Yeah, I think tonight, if we can just approve the basic structure as shown. I think that's what you're after, right, Ben?
Yes, and I've also, although I haven't made a full plan to the ZBA, I have offered total compliance with today's zoning, which means that little L would not be allowed.
Okay,
So can you a couple things, with the fireplace here, obviously it's not called out, but we'd assume that's a true brick fireplace,
Yes,
Or-
it'll be brick.
chimney, I mean.
Yeah.
And then the granite veneered over the concrete foundation. Can you provide some detail on that?
What it's going to be, it's set on a brick shelf as if it was a brick itself, and it's fully molded into the foundation. It's not just stuck to the outside.
All right, so you're doing a shelf for that. It's going to be tied back and then fully grouted and.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's full depth stone.
Full depth, yeah.
And then the only other thing that jumped out at me was the light that you have on the front, but I think you can submit that to Andrea for approval.
Yeah, the light and the paint color will be submitted later.
yep.
Somebody ready?
I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or comments, but that's all that I had.
And there are no butters wanting to comment. So I'll make a motion if
Wait a minute, are the Youngs here? Did they want to comment?
Just that we're in full support of Ben's project. It looks beautiful to us. We've seen, multiple pictures of it. It's
Exciting.
It's exactly what we have wanted for 40 years, and we're really excited about it. So hopefully you can, the zoning will approve it.
Well, hopefully you'll be saying that in the ZBA meeting.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion for certificate of appropriateness for 58 Main Street to build a reproduction of the historic Thomas Barker House. According to plans dated May 5th, 2023. And color to be submitted at a later date. Lighting hardware to be submitted at a later date. And I think that's my motion.
Second, anyone?
Second,
Thank you, Catherine. Eric, what do you think?
Aye.
Justin?
Aye.
Catherine?
aye.
Who am I missing here? Justin, Dan?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. Congratulations, Ben. We're very excited for you. What a wonderful project.
It's so exciting.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much.
was well worth the wait.
Well, we're sorry about that. We appreciate it.
Okay.
No, I meant the 40-year wait.
Oh, that way.
That's a long
So
time to wait.
tonight was nothing.
Okay. Tip of the iceberg.
Just as an aside, I approached Mr. Pitts in 1995 to buy it. And I've been talking to him for 30 years, it seems, but
Oh, my.
That's madness.
That's fabulous. Okay, review or approve of minutes. Are there any minutes to approve?
No, because I thought I sent them, but I didn't. But we have minutes of the 27th, but I'll have to send them out later. Sorry.
Okay, we have one more thing to do. So our esteemed leader, Tracy, has left us for a different commission. He's
Planning board.
already gone off to the planning board. And we need to elect officers tonight. And I would like to nominate for the next presidency, Daniel, if he will be willing to take it.
I'd be happy to take it and honored, as long as we call it chair, and I don't want to be a president.
Or a czar. You can be a
Yeah.
czar.
Now, I want to
I'll-
ask,
Yep.
if anybody else wanting to propose a name or volunteer themselves to be chairman? Not everybody at once. Don't all talk at once.
I think Daniel's gonna be amazing.
Okay.
That's a lot of
So-
pressure, Catherine.
Full
I-
confidence.
I
Thank you.
propose
believe
Daniel
it.
be our president. Anyone second?
Chairman. Mhm.
Chairman, sorry.
Second.
I haven't eaten yet. I'm starving. And seconded by Catherine. Did I hear you?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's go right down the vote. Carol, yes. Eric,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Dan, you want to vote for yourself?
I'll abstain.
Okay,
They
congratulations.
really read the meeting minutes.
Congratulations. You have already brought an awful lot to this committee.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I'm just delighted to have somebody as good as you taking over. I think that's great.
Tracy, I think, is leaving big shoes to fill. I
Yeah.
hope I can summarize,
He was
Half-
the great
half as well as he
summarizer.
did. Yeah.
He was.
Unfortunately, we all know where he lives, so if he's having problems, we can go hunt him down.
So Carol, if I'm not mistaken now, we have to do a
Vice chair.
nomination for a vice chair.
Yes, and I
Um,
can't run that, so you have to.
So,
Mary Ann, you are muted, Mary Ann.
I'm sorry, what?
Mary Ann's muted.
Yes.
She was gonna talk.
Oh,
She,
I'm
Can
not
you-
seeing or
there you
hearing.
go. Hi, Mary Ann.
Pardon?
There she
There
is.
we go.
Hi.
I stopped coughing. I'd like to do the nomination, for vice chair for Carol. Nominate Carol for vice chair.
You aren't sick of me yet?
No.
Second.
Well, second. No, I think
Great.
Not yet. We're happy to have you.
so it's a motion made and seconded. Justin, how do you vote?
aye.
Boy, there's a lot of pressure. I don't think Mary Ann votes on this, right?
No, she
Okay,
can't.
just double checking. Eric, how do you vote?
Aye.
Catherine, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Carol, there
Aye.
you go.
Thank you all.
And
We can
Daniel,
note
how do you
Mary Ann's
vote?
Oh,
enthusiasm.
and I vote, that's an
Yes.
aye for myself, so that's a motion passes unanimous. So
Great.
I think that's the end of our agenda.
It is. I would just like to just talk about one thing. I did get a call earlier, probably about 5 o'clock, from Kevin Caulfield, the owner of 3 Home Meadows. And he explained that he couldn't. I had sent him, I left him a voicemail asking that he should probably have his engineer, structural engineer, and also his architect, if possible, on the meeting tonight. And so at 5 o'clock, he called me and said neither of those people were available. And I encouraged him to, just come in because, I said it's an opportunity wasted. So, but he apparently decided not to. So I will call him tomorrow and see whether he wants to withdraw his application. Or whether he wants to be rescheduled. I don't think he wants to be rescheduled. I think he's wanting to move forward somehow. So that's all I know.
The one thing I'd add to that, Andrea, would be, and it says it in the design guidelines, is that for demolition permits like this, or applications like this, I think it references that it's a good idea or beneficial, or they may be requested. If they can't attend, the structural engineer, a report is appropriate. That could be shared. So I do offer that if you want to share that with him, if it's a matter of getting the person there in person. I think that would be helpful if they choose to proceed with it.
Okay. I will offer that to him. I also offered, I asked him if he wanted to be rescheduled at this point. He wasn't sure. He didn't think so. He just wanted to get done with this. So I'm not sure what the status is. So I'll be keeping you informed. There we have it.
Great. Thank you, Andrea.
The only other thing I wanted to add was I want to try to pick some of the momentum that we had off our last business meeting. I know we're going into summer, but I wanted to try to find a point. It's early September to maybe schedule a meeting coming out of summer, kind of keep some of that speed going. So I'll work with Andrea on that, and then kind of picking up our notes from that last meeting and maybe prioritizing some of those items and how we can start to pick away at that list that we had, because I think there were a lot of good things discussed at that meeting.
Yeah.
I've worked on some. I think some other people, I think Eric's still reviewing some of the plans when they come in, if they're complete.
Yeah, I have not been good about sending him stuff ahead of time, so it's not his fault. It's me.
I'm ready, Andrea, if they come.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not begging for them though, so if they don't come, I'll just go.
No, but thank you.
Yeah, and I think when it's obvious, Andrea, like the one we got for 107 Main Street, they've spent a lot of time, and you can tell by the package that there's a lot of thought into it. So, but I do think there's ambitious projects that we get sometimes with limited to no materials or appropriate. So I do think that that's kind of beneficial.
Yeah, agreed.
That's all I had.
Yeah, one thing I did want to say just while you're saying that, if we could somehow remember and tag this item it would be so helpful to have the befores and afters on the same, at the elevations on the same page, and no one does it. And I think they're doing it on purpose. So it's hard.
Well, they did them tonight they were done same page on 107.
Oh yeah, we've had them done, but
We've had them done before.
We've
It
had
is,
them done, but often when there's
it's-
something,
Yes, I agree with you.
it's hard to read.
I can put that. It would be very helpful.
A requirement in our guide, in our
Yes.
packet.
I have to say, how many reallys, really
Really required.
Right.
Well, the great thing with technology and being on Zoom, we can do it manually also.
Yeah, well,
Some
you
of us.
can.
Some of us.
I'll
our
do it for you anytime you
dear
want.
Oh, you
friends.
can.
I'll do it for well, no, I'm not gonna do it anytime now, but
Party
That's
trick.
great.
The party trick.
yeah.
So I'm glad there are people who can bail me out. So,
So is Carol still the chair? If I was going
No.
to make a motion to adjourn, is it?
No, it's all about
Dan.
Dan.
Now
Dan
it's
is the chair
Daniel.
right now.
Yeah, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Dan, I have one question
Oh, yeah.
to prolong it further. It
Yeah.
sounds like you've investigated further, but this last project, just the energy code implications, and on these
Yeah.
projects that aren't, the building isn't necessarily historic, but it's in a historic district, trying to understand, because the windows are gonna become more and more challenging
Mm.
on those
Yeah.
projects.
I was on a
Like,
meeting with DOER and they basically said they wanted to make it really hard, but not impossible to meet the code.
Ugh.
Direct quote. Another quote being, we didn't really know how difficult the U value rating for the windows was and what it really meant, but we knew it was a gold standard and a high reach. So they felt like it was a good number. It wasn't really fully vetted out and what the implications were. So I think this is my personal opinion. I think with this new code, that energy code that rolls out in July, that's automatically adopted by stretched cities with stretch code already adopted. There's going to be a hard reaction to it, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some retraction on some of it or some exemptions added at some point. But yes, some of these new construction projects are going to probably need triple glazed windows or a lot of insulation. The performance requirements is basically a passive house. If anybody's familiar with it, our code is going to a passive house style. And it's far exceeding California, New York City, who have some of the more progressive energy code requirements in the country. So it's going to be an uphill battle, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes.
So Daniel, for historic properties, I mean, there's so much out there about sustainability and the value of historic structures being the greenest construction. So I'm just really dismayed that there seems to be no recognition within.
There is to a point. It's projects where it's new, like the
Yeah.
small renovations that we see, somebody wanting to replace a window here or a couple windows there, things like that, small renovations. They're not going to be impacted to the same degree as large additions or complete gut renovations. And so there's, depending on what tier your project is and alteration and things like that, it triggers different levels of having to comply with you go from the existing building code and having to comply to the energy code. So there's different tiers. So it's not going to be 100% of our projects that are impacted by it. But somebody like Ben, who's new construction coming in, would have to comply with it.
So on 16 Middle Street, they put an addition on the existing house. And so I had to write something to I don't know, justify the fact that the existing house did not have to have, insulation blown in and all sorts of other crap and windows changed, because that house has original windows. So I'll send that to you all. And if anybody has any comments, I mean, I was kind of like, that's not my forte, but I tried my best, but apparently it was okay. I had to just justify something. So it's just frustrating though, it is frustrating.
So that's why I think it
In the
might be
past-
used.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I just said, I think that's useful for us to educate ourselves on what our role is and what we, if we tell them like they can't do those windows, but they need to do them for the energy code. I feel like
Yeah.
that's where we need to understand when the projects come in front of us, how we handle that. I don't think we know that yet.
Yeah, so I mean, that's where it kind of gets outside of our jurisdiction, which is it's going to be, they're going to have to do their ResCom check, right? And when they go for their permit application, that's when it will tell them if they're meeting or not. So I would expect that it's possible that we'll approve a certain window and they'll come back and say, we can't make this window work. We need to go with something else.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, there are not historic wood windows that are triple glazed right now.
Right. And I know that Susan Hoadley and her partner have they've started to write a justification for 107 Main Street. I mean, I have to give them a lot of credit. Those every one of those windows has been sent out and, restored. And they're all,
Amazing.
yeah, it is amazing. They
It's
have
amazing.
really, they've really taken the extra step. So, and they've got a slate roof. So, I mean, that's,
Amazing.
yeah, it's also amazing. So,
I thought though, for up till now, wasn't historic structures all absolved from the code and things like that, and exceptions from the code? So I mean, why wouldn't they? That are we hearing that that's not going to be the case definitively moving forward with this new code?
I don't think so. I think we still have, there is still a part in the building code that talks about historic structures, but Dan is probably more well-versed than I am in that.
Yeah, there are historic buildings that remain exempt. And then it talks about what that is. So the stretch code maintains, and I mean, I could do a summary if we want to add it as an agenda item one day, if you guys are curious to really get into it. But there are some historic, but it has to be not mandatory for historic buildings, provided that the report has been submitted to the code official and signed by the owner, registered divine professional, and representative of the State Historic Preservation Office or the Historic Preservation Authority having jurisdiction, which is Andrea in this case, demonstrating that compliance with the provision would threaten, degrade, or destroy the historic form, fabric, and function of the building.
Oh, that's going to put a lot more work on Andrea.
So
to
what it
justify
does, what they're basically doing is the blanket statement has gone away. Before it used to be, oh, it's a historic structure, loophole.
Whatever.
Now it's, we're going to make the barrier to entry a real thing, and you've got to do some due diligence and legwork and get somebody to sign off on it.
But like Ben's application today is a perfect example, right? Like that can't get exempt where it feels like it should.
Yeah.
He would have to, if he doesn't get, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is why he's got interior storms on there, on that front elevation. So, that's, I mean, the only other thing you could do is, maybe it might force you to, if you're, think that's the loophole on these front elevations, is that, putting storms over it or a triple glaze, because they don't make a triple glazed in a historic structure, you would end up with very contemporary windows.
Yeah.
And so that's the easy path forward on those things. But it's definitely going to put more pressure on us, on Andrea or the Historic Districts Commission to, vet those things out.
If useful, I am a passive house certified designer, so when we get into that, I have larger building experience, not so much single family, but the same concepts, so I can speak to that.
Fun fact, somebody that sat on the committee that pushed this new energy code for everything to basically go passive house, while they were fighting for that to be included, they were having all their staff go get passive house certified. So,
Oh, geez.
Quite questionable motives on my, in my opinion, but take a motion to adjourn after that long segue.
Well, it was very informative.
I think I used up my motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Justin?
Aye.
Carol?
Hi.
Aye.
Catherine?
Aye.